Hey everyone, welcome to Smash Trivia. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia to follow everything happening with me. I'll be the one with the big old green head in the profile picture. I'm so excited to get into this. This is the Gamma Analysis. Basically, in this series, I'm going to review everything Hulk, all the movies and TV shows. Maybe at some point I could get into comics, but that's a while off. Hope you enjoy. Smash Trivia presents the Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening if they could please do something for me. Please share the hell out of this podcast with all your friends because I really want to get the Gamma Analysis to be big enough that by the time She-Hulk comes out, maybe I could become press and either get the first episode early or be invited to premiere or even just get one of the press goodie bags. For this episode, I'm going to review Marvel's The Avengers in celebration of the film's 10-year anniversary. Our co-host today is Sean, aka the Sean Hulk, from the Captioned Life podcast. How are you doing, Sean?
Hey, not too bad. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. So as I have every week, I have a trivia question for you. And actually, this episode, I decided to do two trivia questions for the film. So the first one was, where did Natasha Romanoff find Bruce Banner in the film?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I really should have watched the movie before this episode. I know it's somewhere in South America. For some reason, Chile's coming up, but I don't know if that's correct. I'll go with Brazil. Let's just go with Brazil.
All right. Well, I'll let you know the answer to that later in the show. And the second trivia question I have is, in the film, Mark Ruffalo plays Bruce Banner, but who provided the Hulk's voice?
It's usually Lou Ferrigno. He always gets the credits in all the Hulk movies for all that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will confirm or deny that answer later in the show. All right. So, as I say every time, I highly recommend watching the film before you listen to this podcast because it is a discussion on the film, and some things may not make sense if you haven't seen it. But and also disclaimer, I'm sorry to everyone listening if I'm all over the place with my notes because there's just too much to talk about with this film, and I wanted to include everything. So my notes are very out of whack with this one. And the podcast I want to shout out this week is the Direct podcast. They talk about everything geeky. I haven't listened to a lot of their podcasts, but I did enjoy what I have listened to. The episode I listened to was a mailbag episode where they take stuff from their fans and that their fans want them to talk about, which is something I love when podcasts do. I've tried doing that in the past with this podcast, but I'm not really at a point where I can where I have enough fans where there's or I would have enough talking points, but but I think it's a really cool thing when podcasts do that. And also friend of the show, Richard Nebbins, and who I had on my Spider-Man No Way Home review, has appeared on there, so definitely check them out. So let's get this review started. So the film starts with I love how the film starts with the Marvel logo and the Paramount logos fading into the Tesseract at the beginning, and then we see this opening scene of the Other giving the scepter to Loki. And our first shot of the Chitauri is such an epic feeling seeing the lines of Chitauri. And then next we see this this helicopter arriving at Project Pegasus, where Maria Hill and Nick Fury are welcomed by Agent Coulson, and Fury has Coulson work on evacuating after the Tesseract turned on, and Hill he told to move the phase 2 weapons out of there. Fury talks to Eric Selvig about what's going on with the Tesseract. He says it's active, and every time they try to turn it off, it just turns back on again. Eric mentions that it's giving off low levels of radiation, nothing harmful, just low levels of gamma radiation. And Fury responds simply saying, that could be harmful. I think was pretty funny. Fury asks what Agent Barton is, and Eric tells him the Hawk. He's up in his nest as usual. And so Fury calls him over. Clint tells him everything is clean, no tampering, at least on this end. And Fury question and at this end, and Clint says, "Yeah, this is a doorway to the other side of the space, right?" And the doors always open from both sides. Right at that moment, something starts happening from it. It I wrote while watching. I feel like Clint and Fury should have ran out of the way when stuff started happening. That they don't know what it is, since that could be dangerous. I found it funny how they just stood there watching it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of comes from like military training too, though, is they're probably trained to like just know there's things, while it's going to happen. But what I found really interesting about this whole scene though is this is right on the heels of Thor, and we know that at the end of Thor, Loki was dropped into the Bifrost, and it seems like they never really give any explanation as to why he survived or how he survived it, and he just shows up in the Avengers, if I remember correctly. I don't think they ever really explained that, and I don't think it's
they don't
something
explain it until Infinity War.
Oh, did they Infinity War?
At the beginning of Infinity War, Thanos there's a one line explanation where Thanos as he kills Loki, he tells him no resurrections this time, which means that Thanos had resurrected Loki to when he wanted him to start his assault on New York.
Okay. I guess I didn't put that together. I thought, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was definitely a retcon on Infinity War, since they definitely did not explain it at all in this of how he came back. So let's see. The next thing I have is there's an explosion of energy, and he's here, Loki, the god of mischief in all his glory. Fury he says, "Sir, please put down the spear." And I really liked that line. I thought it was pretty funny. Loki doesn't take too kind to this. He tries to shoot Fury, but happily Clint pushed him out of the way. Loki then proceeds to be very quick and actively in active fashion kill most of the people in the room. It's really epic. Clint tries getting up, but Loki gets to him saying, "You got heart," and then puts the scepter to his chest and mind controls him. I think this may be probably a bit nitpicky, but I felt that was a weird line. "You got heart." What? Does Loki need people with good heart to mind control?
Yeah, I think it's just him kind of just being coy and devious in that regard, right? Like I think he just likes to be theatrical. I mean, the whole movie is him being the center of attention and just being like embellish everything. And so I think that's what he was doing, is when he was touching him is just kind of emphasizing that part too. So yeah.
That makes sense. So then Barry tries to leave with the Tesseract, but Loki notices, saying, "Please don't." I wrote, "At least Loki's polite."
Right.
Also, we know that from later films, the humans can't hold the Infinity Stones, and I feel like Fury's glove shouldn't be enough protection to just be able to hold it. I found that to be interesting. Fury tries telling him it doesn't need to get any messier, and Loki responds, "Of course it does. I've come too far for anything else. I am Loki of Asgard, and I'm burdened with glorious purpose." And Eric pipes up, "Loki, god of brother of Thor?" And Fury then says, "We have no quarrel with your people." And Loki says, "An ant has no quarrel with a boot." And Fury asks him, "Are you planning to step on us?" Loki responds, "I come with glad tidings of a world made free." And the Fury asks, "Free from what?" "Freedom," Loki responds. "Freedom is life's great lie. Once you accept that in your heart, you will know peace." While saying this, Loki a mind controls Eric, even though I don't. I'm not sure he needed to mind control Eric, since I thought that was supposed to be the thing at the end of Thor, that he'd already been in control of Eric Selvig.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that was kind of an interesting connection there, because I don't think we actually saw that he was controlling him. Well, no, we did see
We
that part
saw
in Thor, yeah,
at the
in
end
the
of
end scene.
in that end credit scene
Yeah.
in Thor, though he didn't put it tie up to Eric's chest because he didn't have the Tesseract at the time, but and he was just a reflection in a wall. But I don't know what else that scene would have meant if it wasn't that he was already trying to control Eric Selvig.
Yeah, this kind of happens in the comics, and my guess is, what they were doing, especially since this was still, phase one, they're trying to get their bearings together and everything, is they'll give you a little sneak peek of like what's coming up. But doesn't necessarily mean that when you see the next movie and everything like that, that it necessarily goes linearly. They do that in the comics sometimes, is they'll end it with like some sort of like weird reveal, and then they kind of, in the next issue, they don't necessarily backtrack a little bit, but it's not like a one-on-one, like a one-for-one continuation of what was happening before that and everything. So
That makes sense.
yeah, so
like that reminds me of the end of the Thor episode of What If, as
right.
that episode ends with the big reveal of Infinity Ultron, but they didn't follow up on that at all, and it
Mhm.
honestly didn't make any sense within the continuity.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common for them to do kind of like a little teaser like that. So yeah.
yeah. So next thing I wrote down is that Barry says, "You say peace, but I kind of think you mean the other thing." And then Clint then tells us Loki that Fury is stalling and that this place is about to blow up. He means to bury us. And
Hmm.
um, Fury then says, "Like the pharaohs of old." And this it's pretty obvious why it reminds me. It reminds me of the current Disney Plus series that's going on Moon Knight. Um,
Hmm.
Eric Selvig confirms, as to say, the portal is collapsing in on itself. 2 minutes till this goes critical. Loki says, "Well then," and Clint shoots Fury. They grab the Tesseract box and start heading out. They run into Hill, and she asks Clint, "Who is that?" And Clint says, "Oh, they did tell me." Loki gets in the back of the truck, which I don't know why, but it's just funny to me seeing this god sitting in the back of a pickup truck.
Hmm. Like it's
Uh,
his chariot. He probably thinks it's
yep.
like a chariot on earth and everything.
Yep. Oh, that's great. So as Hill starts walking away, Fury says over the walkie-talkie, "Hill, do you copy? Barton has been turned." And immediately Clint starts shooting at her. She backs behind a wall, and Clint gets into the truck and heads out. Fury tells her to go after them. They have the Tesseract, and we see this chase, and Loki just demolishes one of the cars following them with a single scepter blast. Hill gets in front of the truck, and turns around so she and Clint can shoot at each other. Right as Coulson gets it's everyone cleared upstairs, and Fury gets on his helicopter, the whole base explodes underground and it all sinks. And Hill's vehicle gets stuck under rock, allowing Loki to get away from the tunnel. But Fury's helicopter is there, and Fury tries to shoot Loki. But Loki blasts the copter, and Fury has to jump out, letting Loki get away. Fury tells Coulson and Hill that this is a level 7 and we are at war. Coulson asks, "What do we do?" And then we see the title card, Marvel's The
Mhm.
Avengers, and we hear that iconic Avengers theme for the very first time. Oh, it's such a great theme. We now go to these guys trying to interrogate Natasha Romanoff. Her cell phone rings. It's Coulson. He tells the general, "Oh, you're at 114 Solonsky E Plaza, third floor. We have an F-22 8 miles out. Put the woman on the phone, or I will blow up the block before you can make it to the lobby." He does, and then Coulson says, "We need you to come in." And Matt says, "Are you kidding? I'm working." He says, "This takes precedence." That says, "I'm in the middle of interrogation. This moron is giving me everything." The general nervously says, "I don't give everything." That says, "You can't pull me out of this right now." Al Coulson tells her Barton has been compromised. Eyes and Nat says, "Let me put you on hold." And Nat beats the hell out of all the guys, and we see a Coulson on the other end just listening.
Mhm.
I thought it was hilarious to see him just listening on the other hand, the other side of the phone to her beating up these guys. I remember reading apparently the film almost got an R rating because of how violent this scene was. They had to so they had to tone it down, and I kind of really want to see what that original version of this scene was. I think that would be interesting.
Mhm.
Uh,
Do do we know? Like, I know she was interrogating them. Do we know why she was interrogating them for Shield? I don't think we've ever
I don't think
really
so.
found that out. I think it was just it. I mean, it makes sense. Like, they're probably just kind of determining, or not determining, but they're establishing, what she can do. Um, for those who probably haven't seen Iron Man 2 and
Mhm.
don't know much about the character, but how she's a really well trained spy in terms of being able to give the interrogators a false sense of security, thinking that they're the one in control, and the whole time she has been, that she's letting them
Mhm.
do that and everything. So it's probably just more of a
Well,
setup to establish that sort of
yeah.
character,
Uh,
reputation for the audience. So
Yeah, I think as well though they really wanted at the start of the film that the that every one of the Avengers is not together, and I think they wanted a reason for why she wasn't also at the Project Pegasus space ace with the Tesseract. So they
mhm.
probably put her under cover when making the film, so that they could have it that they all have to come together. I think that plus what you said, Ed, makes sense why they did this.
Mhm.
So let's see. Do, do, do. She picks back up the phone and asks, "Where's Barton?" And Colson responds, "We don't know." And Nat asks, "But he is alive." Ivan Colson says, "We think so." Oh, I'll brief you when you get back, but first you gotta talk to the big guy. And Nat says, Stark trusts me as far as he can throw me." And Colson responds, "I got Stark. You got the big guy." And next we see this little girl running up to where we finally see the Bruce Banner, and she says she needs a doctor. Her father is sick. Um, Bruce follows her to where he assumes is her house. The girl runs
Mhm.
out a back window, and Nat comes out saying, "Hey, for a guy trying to avoid stress, you picked a hell of a place." As in, Bruce says avoiding stress isn't the secret. And Nat asks us, "Then what is it? Yoga?" And Bruce says, "You brought me to the edge of the city. Smart. I assume the whole place is surrounded." Nat says, "Just you and me." And Sask and your actor's buddy. Is she a spy too? They start that young. Nat says, I did. And Bruce responds, who are you? Nat tells him Natasha Romanoff, and Bruce asks if she's here to kill him because that's not going to work. And Nat says, no, I'm with S.H.I.E.L.D. And Bruce asks, how'd you find me? And Nat says, we never lost you. We've kept our distance, even helped keep some other interested parties off your scent. And Bruce asks why. Nat says, Nick Fury seems to trust you, but now we need you to come in. Bruce says, what if I say no? Nat says, I'll persuade you. Bruce responds, what if the other guy says no? Nat says, you've been over a year without an incident. I don't think you want to end that streak. And Bruce says, well, I don't always get what I want. Nat says, Doctor, we are facing a potential global catastrophe. Bruce says, well, I actively try to avoid those. I thought that was very funny. Nat says this is the Tesseract act. It has the potential energy to wipe out the planet. Bruce asks, what does Fury want me to do with it? Swallow it? Which I also found that hilarious. That says he wants you to find it. It emits a gamma signature too weak for us to trace. There's no one on who knows the gamma radiation as well as you. If there was, I'd be there. And Bruce says, so Fury isn't after the monster. And that says, not that he's told me. And Bruce responds and he tells you everything. And that's as talk to Fury. He needs you on this. Bruce responds, he needs me in a cage. And Nat says, no one's gonna put you in a cage. Bruce then shouts, stop lying to me. Nat grabs a gun and I love the foreshadowing here since Fury actually did make a cage for the Hulk. Bruce says, I'm sorry, that was mean. I just wanted to see what you do. Why don't we do this the easy way? Where you don't use that and the other guy doesn't make a mess. That's Natasha. When he says this, Nat puts her gun away and then stands down, says, stand down to the soldiers outside through her earpiece. Bruce repeats what she said earlier, just you and me. And I think this was a incredible introduction to Bruce in the film. And I think just from this scene alone, he's a better Bruce Banner than Edward Norton was. And then at this point, though, it didn't end up being quite like this. I tried to start writing things down less not writing every single thing down because I realized how it was already pretty long of a review from just like first 10 minutes or so of the film to let's see where I oh my god. So the which I've tried to do more brief descriptions of scenes and write things down that stand out. The next scene is of Fury talking to the World Security Council about Loki declaring war and bringing back the shutdown Avengers initiative to fight him. And having watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I can't help but just have bad guy running through my head as I see Gideon Malik being the one of the people on those screens and him being against bringing the Avengers initiative back. The next scene we see is the introduction scene for our hero from another time, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. Fury meets him at a boxing gym to recruit him. And I love these flashbacks that we get to Captain America: First Avenger. It really heightens the tension for when he hits the punching bag across the room. I really love the line from Fury after Steve asked if he's trying to get me back in the world. old, and Fury tells him trying to save it. Uh, I also love how this scene confirms Mephisto's existence in the file long before or everyone was freaking out wanting him to appear in WandaVision. Um, Fury he says the world has gotten an even stranger than you already know. I feel like that line might be a callback. It's kind of a stretch, but I think it might be a callback to his big line at the end of Iron Man of you just of you're part of a bigger world, you just don't know it yet. Maybe and Steve tells him, I doubt anything would surprise me, and Fury's response is perfect. He says, 10 ducks, you're wrong. um Next, we see a Iron Man's introduction as he messes with the a wire pipe in the water, and Tony Stark has access to the sustainable, self-sustainable clean energy. I don't understand why he doesn't try to make it available to the world, since he tries to act like he's such a big hero. Um, it
Well, he's got to make money somehow.
Yeah, I feel like he doesn't care nearly as much about the making money as he or at least he tries to make it out to me that
He
he doesn't care much.
I no, I don't
Since
think that's ever been the
stopping.
case. I think it's more of I think it's more of like he wants to make sure whatever he puts out is, betters the world. Now, in order for him to do that, though, he does need a substantial source of income, and so
Yeah,
he's
that
going to
makes
have
sense.
to, because if he has to care about making money on some level.
Mhm.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to make all these things with the technology that he has, because all that does cost money. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, because he's probably using the building as a prototype before releasing it out, as a something that they can market and things like
Mhm.
that. But yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So the next thing I wrote down was so it's so cool how the machine that he has to take his armor off at Stark Tower. I
Hmm.
really like that thing, and I think it's sad that that they never used that again after this film. I feel like he would have rebuilt that when he rebuilt the it as the Avengers Tower, but I don't know. I think it's just as a cool sequence. It would be nice to have more of throughout the MCU. Um, we
Yeah.
find
Well,
out.
and oh, I sorry, I was just going to say,
Sorry.
and you know, this is something in cinema that you see with hero and action scenes and stuff like that. Is you always want to give a one up in terms of what you did before, and Iron Man's like a prime example of that. And we saw different ways that the suits can do different things. So I think it made sense in a couple of ways why we don't see it again. Is one, they want to show you, like, just how inventive Tony is and trying to be more efficient and how all those things can be done. But I think the second thing is, we saw the development of the armor. So after this movie, we got Iron Man 3, and that's when
Mhm.
he was experimenting with the armor being able to just on its own be able to just slide on and off and everything. So when he
Makes
got to that
sense.
point in the technology, it doesn't make sense for him to have that sort of machinery anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about that when I was doing a rewatch. So the next is we find out that Coulson is here to try and get Tony, and Tony tells Jarvis to grow a spine. And when Jarvis tells him that he's overrided the system, which I found really funny, him telling Jarvis to grow a spine. I
Mm-hmm.
love how disgusted Tony is that Coulson's first name is Phil, that he believes it's Agent.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Tony really can't wrap his head around the fact that his name is Phil, as like he keeps mentioning it throughout the scene, and then it's also hilarious how Pepper gives as Coulson her drink and then takes the file and hands it to Tony taking his drink.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do,
I
do,
love
you, do you know why that is?
uh why that she gave him the file, or what do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, do you know the story behind this?
No.
So this is a character trait that Robert Downey Jr. actually created because um Tony Stark was actually based on a real person in real life named Howard Hughes, right?
Mm.
And when Robert Downey Jr. was doing some of his research, he came across that Howard Hughes is just like Tony Stark, where he's like a multimillionaire. I can't remember if it was actually weapons development or not, but he was definitely in the airplane transportation and aviation and things like that. But one of the things that was reported on him was that he had either a severity of OCD or germophobic. And so there was reports of him not liking things being handed to him. And so Robert Downey Jr. thought that was really interesting that he actually made it part of Tony Stark's persona and saying that he doesn't like things being handed to him, but he only likes it when Pepper hands stuff to him. So
Nice. That's really interesting.
yeah.
So the next thing and I wrote down is uh um I love how the seeds are being planted for Agents of Shield as Pepper asked Coulson about the cellist who is revealed to be Coulson's and his girlfriend in the first season of the show. And then the next scene shows Coulson on a Quinjet with Steve, Abe, and Steve mentions how Banner was trying to recreate the super soldier serum, which I love that callback to the events of the 2008 Incredible Hulk film.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote I love Coulson so much. He's just so funny. As he mentions Steve. They watched him sleep while he was in the ice, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
really weird thing to tell your idol or anyone for that matter,
Right.
but it's hilarious. So
Well, because he says it so nonchalantly, like there's nothing weird about it, right?
yeah, no,
Yeah.
oh man. It's one of my raises my Coulson is one of my favorite characters in the entire MCU. Oh man. So Steve says, don't you think the stars and stripes are a little old fashioned and Coulson's response I found very interesting. He says, with the things that are about to come to light, people might just need a little old fashioned. And I'm not quite sure what he meant by things about to come to light. It most likely
Mm.
was just meaning about Loki and stuff. But I feel like it was kind of I have Marvel foreshadowing to the audience of what would happen in the Winter Soldier
Mm.
with everything going on with Hydra, and I thought that was a little bit of an interesting connection there.
Right.
The next scene in first shows a bit of Loki's operation, but then and the walls disappear around Loki to show him remembering a conversation between him and the other. And then Steve and Coulson arrive on the helicarrier and are greeted by Nat, and Coulson leaves. Um, and then Nat ask Steve if Coulson has tried to get him to sign his trading cards yet, and then Steve meets Bruce Banner, and I gotta say it feels quite legendary for these two to finally meet on screen in live action. I think that's kind of a cool thing. Nat tells them they might want to get inside because it's going to become very hard to breathe. And Steve asks if this is a submarine, and Bruce says they want me in a submerged, pressurized metal container. And they look over the edge to see it's rising, and Bruce says, "Oh no, this is much worse." And I found this really funny. They they then walk into the main area, and I'm not sure or what it's supposed to be called, but it's where Nick Fury has his arms both pointed outward to the sides with monitor steering, and Fury has them turn the helicarrier invisible. And I love Steve giving Eve giving Fury the $10 from the bet earlier. I thought that was a really cool callback. Um, Fury thanks Bruce for coming, and he asks how long he has to stay. And Fury tells him just till they get the Tesseract, then he's in the wind. And Bruce gives them a way to narrow down the search, and then ask where he's supposed to work. So Fury sends Nat to show him to his lab. Right. So the next scene is back at Loki's base, and we have a conversation between Selvig and Clint about how something that Selvig need iridium, and Loki comes and asks what the Tesseract showed them. And Clint says his next target, and he needs a distraction and an eyeball. And I found that particularly funny. The next scene shows Coulson asking Steve about signing his cards. And then Agent Sitwell tells them they found Loki in Germany. And Fury says, Captain, you're up. And we briefly see the party that Loki will crash. And then Steve walking into the room with his new suit. Not Steve walking. Oh wait, yeah, Steve walking into the room on the helicarrier with his new suit. I know a lot of people don't really like the suit they wears in this, including Chris Evans himself. But I actually really love this suit, most out of any of the suits he's had, because I love how vibrant it is in comparison to most of the other suits he's had. What do you think of the suit that he has in this film?
I could see why people may not like. I think it's a interesting adaptation of the suit from the comics. I think the biggest complaint that I've heard from people about the suit, one is kind of the vibrancy, because if you're trying to be, incognito, he stands out really bad in that. I think the other thing is that the suit seemed like it wasn't classic enough to pull off the classic, but wasn't practical modern enough. It was like somewhere in between that was just kind of in an odd spot. And so you would think they would kind of go like one way or the other. And so that being said, I didn't mind the suit. Like I understand that, being like a little incognito thing. I think that didn't bother me though, because there was nothing about what he was doing that was incognito. And so,
yeah.
And I think we get that with Winter Soldier, where he has like different suits and different shields for the missions and stuff like that. But I thought the suit was really interesting look. It's not my favorite that he's had, but it's definitely probably the most memorable, because it is a replication of what he symbolized and what he would have wore back then, but with that kind of, modern update to it, to a certain extent. It wasn't tactical enough or anything like that, but I think it was just more of it resembled what the whole suit in the first Captain America movie was. It was meant to be just more theatrical than anything else. And I think that was the other issue that people had with it, is that it seemed like it was replicating that theatrical part of it and not anything that it almost seems like an insult at some point. But with that being said, I didn't mind it. I didn't like the boxy, ammunition boxes that he has on his utility belt. I've never been a big fan of that look or anything like that. Even with Batman, who's known for that sort of thing, like I just don't like the boxy look. Like if it was like more flat and practical, that makes sense.
I can understand.
Yeah, but I thought it was fine. It's not my favorite, but I didn't really hate it or anything like that. I think it was, pretty solid in terms of, the first Avengers appearance.
Yeah, I just really like it, because like I'm a kind of person where I really like it, like mainly suits being like super vibrant. And I don't like nearly as much in superhero things when they like make all of the suits like really dull and all and drained of color. I know there's a lot of people that like that, but I'm just someone who's I like the fantasticalness of this, and not to just be a what would be practical in real life. I like it's superheroes. I don't think it needs to be what would be practical in real life. Oh. So the next thing that I wrote down was that uh, uh, we see a Hawkeye shoot some people outside the party, and then the shot of it of the Quinjet, and then back to who Hawkeye is. He's gonna open the door with the with an eye that Loki gets. As Loki walks towards getting that eye, classical music is heard in the background, and I love this scene as well. You're gonna hear throughout this review a lot of times where I'm just gonna be like, I love this scene a lot. It's because there's so many great scenes in this film. It Man, Loki stabbing that guy's eye with that scanner was brutal, and a part of me kind of wishes we actually got to see it happen and not just hear the sound. But I do think it's like one of the more brutal moments in the entire MCU. Um, uh, as everyone on runs away, Loki changes into his more royal looking suit, and it's awesome. And then Loki tries forcing everyone to kneel, showing multiple versions of himself. And when they don't do so, and when they don't do so, he shouts as loud as he can, uh, uh like the toddler he is. I wrote. And after Loki has his speech about how he believes we were made to be ruled, and we get this incredible moment where this his old man gets up and says, "Not to men like you," and Loki tries saying, "There are no men like me," and the old man responds powerfully, "There are always men like you." And Loki tries to shoot him, but Captain America comes down and blocks it. We get a great fight between them, and then Iron Man shows up, and this is another great meeting of heroes. They capture Loki, and then we see them all on the Quinjet. And turbulence, there's lightning out, and we all know who that is. Thor, the god of thunder. Thor grabs Loki. A Cap tells Iron Man, "We need a plan of attack," and Iron Man says, "I have a plan. Attack." I love that line. We get this great conversation between Thor and Loki before or the other heroes show up. Thor tells Loki, "You listen here, brother." The other, and at that moment, Iron Man grabs Thor, or Loki. Then right after Iron Man grabbed Thor, Loki says, "As listening," which I thought that was hilarious. And we get a fantastic line from Iron Man. "Does mother knoweth you weareth her drapes?" Apes and Iron Man and Thor start fighting. I love seeing a Loki just watching all this take place. And I think the only thing that would have made the scene better is if Loki conjured himself up some popcorn. Thor powers up Iron Man to 400%, which makes Iron Man quite happy. I love that they headbutt each other. There's not many fight scenes you see in films where the characters headbutt each other. And then Captain America shows up. He tells them, enough. And I love how in that instant, Cap is trying to be like a parent figure to them. And Thor says he's trying to stop Loki, and Cap says, "Prove it. Put that hammer down." And Iron Man pipes up, "Bad call. He loves his hammer," which causes his Thor to hit him with it. It was such a great moment. Thor says, "You want me to put the hammer down?" And Thor proceeds to put it down into the shield, causing a giant shock wave as they hit each other. It's iconic to see this. I can't imagine anyone in 2012 could have imagined that 7 years later we'd see a one person holding both the shield and the hammer. Next we see a Loki getting escorted to his holding cell on the helicarrier. He smiles at Bruce in his lab, and Fury lets Loki know that what will happen if he tries anything, and that this cage was made for someone much stronger than you. And then the scene transitions to the Avengers watching it, and we hear Loki say, "Oh, I've heard a mindless beast." Nat stares over at Bruce, and Loki says the famous line, "How desperate are you to call upon such lost creatures to defend you?" Fury says, "How desperate am I? You threaten my world with war. You steal a force you can't hope to control. You talk about peace and you kill because it's fun. You have made me very desperate. You might not be glad that you did." These are such incredible lines. And then Loki goes on a spiel about real power. Fury tells him, "Let me know if real power wants a magazine or something." Next, we see a conversation between the Avengers about how Loki's play, and Thor tells him about the Shari, which I'm not sure exactly how Thor knows about them, because I can't imagine Loki would have told him about them. He definitely didn't tell about them on screen. Did you notice anything, Sean, that I didn't notice there, that would have make sense for how he knows this?
So what was it that he said exactly? I can't remember the line word
Um,
for word.
I I don't have written down word for word of what exactly he says here, but Thor tells the rest of the Avengers about the Shatari, and I don't remember Thor ever being told by Loki about the Shatari. So I don't
Did,
know how he would have known about them.
did he? I mean, was the context that he knows Loki is with the Shatari, or was he just casually talking about the Shatari? Because he probably knows who the Shatari
He,
are.
I think
So
he was saying that Loki he has the army of this army of Shatari, and um which I don't know how he would know that Loki has an army, or particularly an army of Shatari, since I don't think Loki has mentioned that to him.
yeah, maybe not, but I mean, sometimes that information gets revealed off screen as
Mhm.
well too, which is not like a great way to let the audience know about that. But yeah,
Yeah,
so no, I agree with you in that I don't recall Thor being told, and so it kind of leaves
yeah,
you in a wondering of how you found that out.
yeah. And which if I wasn't reviewing this, is I probably wouldn't be reading so much into it. So which most of the audience wouldn't be reading so much into it either. So oh, it's probably not that big of a deal. So yeah. Um, let's see. The next thing we have was and I love how Thor tells them to be careful. Oh, how you speak of Loki. He's my brother. Nat says he killed 80 people in 2 days, and the Thor says he's adopted, which I think is pretty funny. Um, then we have this line from Tony about how that man is playing Galaga. He thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. It's just so hilarious. And I hope we get a callback to that in one of the upcoming films. That was such a great a moment in the film that it's kind of saddens me that they've never called back to that. They've called back to jokes before, but they've never called back to that one. Um, I love Tony telling Bruce, "I love how you lose control and turn into an enormous green rage monster." And then we get the famous meme aim of "I understood that reference" from Cap. Then as Tony and Bruce leave the room, the guy goes back to playing Galaga. And then the next scene shows is Bruce and Tony in the lab. Bruce confirms that the scepter has gamma radiating off of it. And Tony tells him he should visit Stark Tower. It would be like Candyland for him. Bruce says thanks, but last time I was in New York, I wrecked Harlem. Obviously referencing the events of the Incredible Hulk. Tony tells him, I promise a stress-free environment, no tension, no surprises. Proceeds to zap Bruce. Cap walks in saying, "Are you nuts?" And Tony responds, "Jerry's out. What's your secret?" And mellow jazz, bongo drums, a huge bag of weed. And Cap asks, "Is everything a joke to you?" Oh, Tony responds, "Funny things are." And Cap says, "Threatening everyone on this ship isn't funny." And Bruce says, "It's all right. I wouldn't have come aboard if I couldn't handle pointy things." Tony questions, why did Fury call us in now? Isn't he, what isn't he telling us? As Cap asks Bruce for his opinion. Bruce tells him he thinks that Loki was talking about Stark Tower for power, and Cap hilariously calls it that big ugly building in New York arc, and he pauses before saying building. I wonder what he was going to call it before, or Tony looked at him. Bruce asks, why didn't Shield bring in Tony on the Tesseract project? Why are they even in on the energy business in the first place? Tony says he should look into that when his decryption gets into all of Shield's files. Cap tells him, and you're confused why they don't want you around, and then Cap correctly assumes that that Loki is trying to wind them up, but that doesn't mean that and they aren't right, that Shield is hiding stuff from them. Bruce says, Steve, tell me this doesn't feel funky to you. And Steve tells him to just find the cube as he leaves to go, look into the stuff himself. Bruce tells Tony, hey, Steve is right. Loki has the jump on us. And Tony says, what he's got is an Acme dynamite kit, and I'm going to be there when it blows up in his face. And Bruce says, I'll read all about it. Tony tells him, or you'll be suiting up with the rest of us. And Bruce tells him, he doesn't get a suit of armor. He's exposed. And Tony tells him about the arc reactor stopping shrapnel from hitting his heart. And Tony tells him he read about Bruce's accident. That much gamma radiation should have killed you. Bruce responds so you're saying the Hulk saved me? Saved me for what? Tony says, I guess we'll find out. Bruce refuses to believe it, but Tony is right. The Hulk saved him. And then the next scene shows Cap breaking into the room with the Phase 2 weapons. We then see a Selvig in the back of a truck working with the Iridium. The next scene shows Oz Coulson promising Thor that Jane Foster will be safe, and they have a conversation about Bill Schneip. And Coulson asks us, what are those? And Thor says, huge, scary, big antlers. You don't have those? And Coulson says, no, I don't think so. I found that pretty funny. Thor looks out the window and talks about when he first came here, Loki's rage followed me, and now it's happening again. In my youth, I courted war. Fury shows up saying war hasn't started yet. He asks Thor if he could get at Loki to talk, and Thor says, as he doesn't know, for Loki, he's not craving power, but vengeance on me. No pain would prize his need from him. And Fury says, a lot of people think that until the pain starts. Thor says, what are you asking me to do? And Fury says, I'm asking, what are you prepared to do? And Thor says, Loki is a prisoner. And Fury responds, then why does it feel like he's the only one on this ship who wants to be here? The next scene, Nat goes to talk to Loki. Loki tells her there's not many who could sneak up on me. He figured she'd come after Fury tortures him as a friend, a bomb, and Nat tells him a bit about her relationship with Clint. Loki thinks he's crushing her emotionally, which he was a little bit, but she is actually manipulating him as well into giving her information. As Loki speaks down to Nat, we see a virus detected on the computers. Steve finding the weapons, Tony and Bruce looking at the shield files, and Nat tells him, "You're a monster." He responds, "No, you brought the monster on board." Nat then stops weeping and says, "So Banner, that's your play." This surprises Loki. Loki tells everyone to keep Banner in the lab. I'm on my way. Fury comes into the lab and asking Tony what he's doing. You're supposed to be looking for the cube. Bruce says we are, and when we get hit, we'll have a location within half a mile. And Tony asks, what is phase 2? Just as Steve comes back and telling them about the weapons and that were made from the cube, and everyone is tense there as Nat walks in and Bruce asks if she knows about this. Nat tells Bruce, "Do you want to remove yourself from this environment?" And Bruce responds, I was pretty far removed before you got me." Nat says, "Loki has been manipulating you." And Bruce asks, "What have you been doing exactly?" And Nat responds, "You didn't come here because I bat my eyes at you." Bruce says, and I'm not leaving because you suddenly get a little twitchy. And Bruce says, I'd like to know why Shield is using the Tesseract to build tools of mass destruction. Fury says, because of him, points at Thor. Thor, confused, says, me? And Fury says that last year, Earth had a visitor from another planet that had a grudge match that leveled a small town. We learned that not only are we not alone, we are hopelessly, hilariously outgunned. Thor says, as my people are at peace with you. And Fury responds, well, you aren't the only people out there and not the only threat. The world is filling up with people who can't be matched, who can't be controlled. And Cap says, as like you controlled the cube. Thor says, your work drew Loki here. That the Tesseract emits a signal that Earth is ready for a higher form of war. Fury says, you forced my hand. We had to come up with something. And Tony says, a nuclear deterrent? Because that always calms things down. And the next few things they say don't really matter much, is it just all arguing with each other, but it is a fantastic scene. I know this wasn't really that's I think that scene deserved a lot of attention to detail. Everyone argues we get a shot of the scepter, and we see the a Quinjet arriving with Clint and Loki's men, disguised as the Shield agents. Back in the lab, we hear Thor say, "You speak of control, that you court chaos." Bruce responds, "That's his MO, isn't it? I mean, what are we? A team? No, we're a chemical mixture that creates chaos. We're a time bomb." And Fury says, "You need to step away." And Tony says, "Why shouldn't the guy let off a little steam?" And Cap says, "You know damn well why. Back off." Tony says, "I'm starting to want you to make me." Cap responds, "Big man in a suit of armor, take that away. What are you?" Tony responds, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. As Cap says, I know guys with none of that worth 10 of you. You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play, to lay down on a wire and let the other guy all over you. Tony responds, I think I just cut the wire. Iron Cap responds, always a way out. You may not be a threat, but you better stop pretending you be a hero. Tony responds, a hero? Like you? You're a laboratory experiment, Rogers. Everything special about you came out of a bottle. We see then and Clint on the Quinjet shoot an arrow at the ship. We then hear Air Caps say, put on the suit, we'll go a few rounds. Thor laughs, you people are so petty and tiny. Fury says, Romanoff, would you please escort Banner back to his? Bruce cuts him off, saying, where? You rented my room. Fury says, the cell was. Bruce cuts him off again, saying, just in case you needed to kill me, but you can't. I tried. I got low. I didn't see a way an end, and I put a bullet in my mouth, and the other guy spit it out. So I moved on. I focused on helping other people. It was good until you dragged me back into this freak show and put everyone at risk. You want to know my secret, Agent Romanoff? Do you want to know how I stay calm? Fury and Nat grab their guns, and Cap says, Dr. Banner, put down the scepter. Bruce hadn't realized he picked it up. He puts it down just as they get a beeping alarm alerting them to the cube's location. And then next, you see. So Bruce says, sorry, I guess you don't get to see my party trick after all. Cap and Iron Man get back into it, and Bruce says, oh my God. And then boom, there where the Clint shot explodes. All hell breaks loose. As Cap tells Tony to put on the suit. Bruce and Nat were thrown out the glass behind them. Hill tells Fury number 3 engine is down. Gallagher guy says it's impossible to get out there and make repairs. Stark and Cap go to try and fix it. Fury tells Coulson to start defensive lockdown and then get to the armory. We see Nat tell Fury they are okay, but Bruce is definitely not. Clint and his men make it into the ship, and Iron Man opens up his new suit, and then we're back to Nat and Bruce. Nat tries to calm him down, but it doesn't work. We see Bruce transform into the Hulk. It feels so good to see. And then as the Hulk, it has been unleashed. I love of Hulk's introduction to this film so much, and Hulk chases Nat through the room. We're shown Loki smiling as everything is going to plan. Fury tells an agent to get them over water because if one more turbine goes down, they're gonna drop. We see Cap and Tony start working to fix the turbine. And back to Nat hiding from Hulk. Hulk screams at her and she shoots a pipe above his head to blind him, but it doesn't work. Hulk keeps chasing her, breaking everything in his path. It's so good. Hulk catches up to her and throws her against a wall. And as he's about to hit her again, and Thor comes and knocks Hulk against a wall, or Hulk through a wall, actually. Hulk screams at Thor for this. And then Thor punches him. Hulk tries to crush him under his fist, but Thor is able to just barely hold his fist with both arms. And Thor tells him, we are not your enemy, Banner. Try to think. And Hulk lets up for a second and then punches Thor through a wall. And I really cannot say enough how much I love these Hulk scenes. And back to Iron Man and Cap fixing the turbine. And Tony tells him we got to get in and push. Cap tells him if that thing gets up to speed, it'll get shredded. Tony tells him the red lever. It will slow things down long enough so I can get out. So stand by and wait for my signal. Back to Thor and Hulk. Thor tells him yeah, Thor calls Mjolnir air and hits Hulk with it. Hulk crashes into a jet, destroying it. He throws the jet's wing at Thor, but Thor dodges. Thor throws Mjolnir at Hulk, who tries to grab it, sending him flying into the floor. Hulk tries to pick it up, but is unworthy, so it just makes his feet sink into the floor. Thor knees him in the face and starts trying to use his Mjolnir to choke him. Hulk jumps in the scene, and then the scene cuts to the main room where everyone or someone threw a grenade, and Loki's soldiers come in, and Fury attacks one of them, taking their gun. And Hill shoots another in the head. We see Coulson use his eye scan to get in the room with the Phase 2 weapons. Back to Thor and Hulk, who broke up into research level 4 while fighting. We then see Fury and Hill defending the main area, and Hill says the Hulk will tear this place apart. And Fury responds, "Get his attention." They send a jet to distract Hulk and get him off the ship. Hulk is just throwing Thor around, and then the jet starts shooting him. The guy in the jet yells, "Target angry, target angry," as Hulk jumps at the jet. Hulk starts ripping the jet to shreds, and the guy tries to eject, but Hulk grabs him and throws him. I love this so freaking much. The last of the jet explodes, and then Hulk starts barreling towards the ground, and back to Iron Man and Cap. Iron Man breaks off a piece of debris, and soldiers come to fight Cap. And then back to Fury and Hill. Fury says they aren't getting through here. So, what the hell? And then a bomb it cuts him off as a bomb explodes from Clint in the room. And he shoots a hacking arrow into a computer, jamming the entire system, stopping another engine. Fury tells Nat where Clint is heading, and so she heads there. Back to Iron Man and Cap. Iron Man starts pushing the turbine. And Steve starts shooting at the enemies. Steve falls out of the ship but catches a wire, and we see a Thor confronting Loki, who tricks him into getting stuck in the cell, and then Loki mocks him. Next, we see Clint as Nat tries to sneak up behind him, and they fight. It is a great scene that showcases both of their specialties. And then back to Thor and Loki. A Thor dumbly hits the glass, which will cause a cell to plummet out of the ship. But first, Coulson comes in with one of the Phase 2 weapons. This scene is so fantastic. Coulson tells him, and we made the prototype after you sent the destroyer. Even I don't know what it does. Want to find out? Loki appears behind him, stabbing him in the back. To this day, even though I know it's gonna happen, it still hits me right in the feels to see a Coulson, one of the most lovable people in the MCU, get killed. It's so painful to see. It's also one of the most brutal scenes in the entire MCU. And then Thor or drops, and then we see some more of Nat and Clint's fight. Nat knocks him out. And then back to Thor, who's barreling down to prevent to possible death. As he breaks the glass and flies out of there on Mjolnir, and then crashes on lands in a field. Back to Loki, where Coulson tells him, "You're going to lose." As Loki responds, "Am I?" Coulson says, "It's in your nature." Loki tells him, "Your heroes are scattered. Your floating fortress falls from the sky. Where is my disadvantage?" Coulson says, "You lack conviction." And Loki says, "I don't think I." Coulson cuts him off by firing the weapon, and says, as in his almost dying breath, "So that's what it does." Sadly to say, Sean had to leave halfway through our recording, so I will be finishing this off of solo. So you guys will get to hear some solo content from me. Hey, all right. So let's continue this Avengers review. All right. So Loki says, "I don't think I." And Coulson cuts him off, firing the weapon, and says in his almost dying breath, "So that's what it does." I can't say enough how great this scene is, and then back to Iron Man pushing the turbine. He tells Cap to hit the lever, but Cap needs him. He's dangling, and Cap crawls to the lever while getting shot at. There's so much suspense. The turbine starts going faster than Tony, leading him to say, "Uh-oh," as the turbine spins him around and around. And then last second, Cap is able to hit the lever, and Tony gets out. Loki flies off in a Quinjet, and then Fury finds Coulson, who tells him, "Sorry, boss." The god rabbited. Fury tells him to stay awake. "Eyes on me." Coulson says, "No, I'm clocking out now." Fury tells him that's not an option. Coulson says, "It's okay, boss. This was never gonna work. If they didn't have something to..." Coulson takes his last breath. Fury stands there in shock as the medics take his body. Fury tells everyone what happened over his earpiece. Everyone is just in shock. And in my opinion, Coulson's death hits just as hard as Tony's does in Endgame. I was getting emotional just as I was writing this. Fury tells Cap, I guess he never got to sign them, as he throws the blood-soaked Captain America cards on the table. And Fury tells everyone what... Fury tells them, and we're dead in the air. Communications, the location of the cube, Banner, Thor, I've got nothing for you. Lost my one good eye. Maybe I had that coming. Yes, we were going to build an arsenal with the Tesseract. I never put all my chips on that because I was playing something even riskier. There was an idea, Stark knows this, called the Avengers Initiative. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people to see if they could become something more, to see if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could. Phil Coulson died believing in that idea. Tony storms off, and then we see a Thor in the field trying to pick up Mjolnir, but it doesn't seem to work. Then we see a Bruce butt-ass naked, as the security guard tells him, "You fell out of the sky." Bruce asks if he hurt anybody. The guard says, "Nobody around to get to hurt." I love that Bruce's first thought is, "Did I hurt anybody?" As that really shows who he is as a hero. The guard tells him, "You did scare the hell out of some pigeons, though." Bruce says, "Lucky." The guard responds, "Or just good aim." And Bruce asks, "You saw?" The guard responds, "The whole thing. Right through the ceiling. Big and green and buck-ass nude." It's hilarious. He hands him a pair of pants and says, I didn't think they'd fit till you shrunk back into a regular size, feller." He asks Bruce if he's an alien, and Bruce responds, "What?" The guard responds say, "An alien from outer space?" Bruce says no. He responds, "Well then, son, you got a condition." I thought that was pretty funny. We then see Clint wake up, fighting the last of his mind control, Nat by his side, comforting him. He basically asks her if she knows what it's like to be mind controlled. She tells him, "You know that I do." He asks how she got him out. She tells him, "I hit you really hard in the head." He thanks her. He starts asking how many agents Nat cuts him off, saying, "Don't do that to yourself. This is Loki, monsters, and magic. and nothing we were ever trained for. The conversations in this film are so fucking good, man. It's such a great film. Clint says he doesn't know where Loki went, but he's gonna make his play soon. Today, and then Nat says, we gotta stop him. Clint asks, who's we? Nat says, who's ever left? Clint says, well, if I put an arrow in Loki's eye socket, I bet I'd sleep better, I suppose. And man, that was hilarious. Clint asks why Nat, a spy, not a soldier, wants to wade into war. What did Loki do to you? And Nat tells him he didn't. I got compromised. I got red in my ledger. I'd like to wipe it out. Cap goes to talk to Tony about Coulson, and this is one scene that I actually don't remember from any time that I've watched this before. Cap asks, was he married? Tony says no. There was a cellist, I think. Cap says, I'm sorry. He seemed like a good man. And Tony says, he was an idiot. Cap asks why. For believing? Tony says for taking on Loki alone. Cap says he was doing his job. Tony says he was out of his league. He should have waited. Cap says sometimes there isn't a way out. Tony says, right, I've heard that one before. Cap asks, is this the first time you lost a soldier? Tony angrily tells him, we are not soldiers. I am not marching to Fury's fife. Cap tells him, neither am I. Fury has the same blood on his hands as Loki, but right now we gotta put that behind us and get this done. Loki needs a power source, so if we can put together a list. Tony cuts him off, saying he made it personal. Cap says that's not the point. Tony tells him that is the point. Loki's point. He hit us all right where we live. Why? Cap responds, to tear us apart. Tony responds, divide and conquer is great, but he knows he has to take us out to win. That's what he wants and to be seen doing it. Cap says, yeah, he wanted that in Germany. Tony says that that was just the previews. This is opening night. Loki is a full tilt diva. He wants flowers, parades. He wants a monument built in the sky with his name plastered. He cuts himself off. Son of a bitch. Next scene, Angel Selvig on top of Stark Tower with the Tesseract machine. And then we see a Cap in his suit tell Clint and Nat, time to go. I need someone who can fly those jets. Clint says, I can. Cap asks if he has a suit. He says, yeah. And Cap tells him to suit up. We get a cool montage of everyone getting their weapons. It's so epic. A guy in the jet says, you aren't authorized to be here. Cap says, son, just don't. Which I thought was very funny. We see Fury looking at the cards, and Agent Hill comes up to him, and she says, those cards were in Coulson's locker, not in his jacket. Fury says they needed the push. And it's such a powerful way to give them that push. It's such a great idea. With filmmakers, when they decided to have that be the push for them, for the Avengers to team up together, it was really a beautiful thing. Fury sees the Avengers leave and says they found him. And get our communications up, whatever you have to do. I want eyes on everything. Tony flies to Stark Tower as his suit keeps malfunctioning. We see a closer look at the Tesseract machine. Jarvis tells Tony, I shut off the arc reactor, but the device is already self-sustaining. Tony tells Selvig to shut it off. And Selvig says, as it's too late. She can't be stopped now. She wants to show us something. A new universe. Tony tries to blast it, but there's a force field that repels his blast back at him. Tony says Plan B as he flies down to his penthouse where Loki is standing. Jarvis tells him the Mark 7 is not ready for deployment. Tony says, then skip the spinning rims. We're on the clock. Again, it's so cool, this machine that he has for taking off his suit as he walks staring at Loki. Tony and Loki have a great conversation, so some of the highlights include Tony calling the scepter a glow stick of destiny, and as well Tony using the comic line of Earth's mightiest heroes. Tony says a head count out. Your brother, a super soldier, a man with breathtaking anger management issues, 2 master assassins, and you, big fella, have managed to piss off every single one. Loki says, that's the plan. Tony tells him, not a great plan. When they come, and they will, they'll come for you. Loki tells him, I have an army. And Tony responds, we have a Hulk. Tony continues his speech. It's really great stuff. I wasn't gonna write all of that down. This is already a way too long review already. But he says, if we can't protect the Earth, you'll be damn well sure we'll avenge it. Loki tries to mind control him, but he doesn't work because of the arc reactor, which I found pretty hilarious. Tony gets thrown out the window and his new suit saves him. It's really cool. Tony comes back up saying, there was one other person you pissed off. His name was Phil. The Tesseract opens the portal and the Chitauri starts coming through. Tony he goes up firing at them. It's really cool. But he's not enough. They get through him and shoot up the streets as pedestrians run screaming. Loki conjures the rest of his suit as Thor shows up. They fight, destroying Stark's name on the building. Cap, Nat, and Clint arrive, machine gunning Chitauri from their Quinjet. Loki shoots the Quinjet and it starts heading to crash. We keep flashing to Cap in the back trying to hold on, and it's really funny. And then after the crash, they head to a bridge and see a portal as the Chitauri Leviathan comes through. Cap asks Tony if he's seeing this. Tony says, yeah, still working on believing. Has Banner showed up yet? Cap says, Banner? Tony tells him, just keep me posted. Loki tricks Thor into believing he has remorse, just so he can stab him in the stomach. Thor beats up Loki for a bit after this, and then Loki rolls off the building onto a Chitauri vehicle. Loki and the Chitauri blow up some streets. We see a really epic scene of Cap running and jumping off the bridge. We see Cap save some people as he goes back to fighting, and Nat says, it's just like Budapest. Clint responds, you and I remember Budapest very differently. 2 cops have a conversation about the National Guard not being able to get here for an hour, and then Cap pops up in front of them giving him an order, and one of the cops asks, why the hell should I take orders from you? And he sees Cap then fend off Chitauri and does what Cap says to. Tony shoots up the Leviathan and getting its attention, and back on the bridge, Cap comes back and Thor arrives down to them. Cap starts telling him a plan, and then Bruce drives up. Bruce tells him, this all seems horrible. Nat says, I've seen worse. And Bruce says, sorry. Nat says, no, we could use a little worse. Cap says, as Stark, we got him. Banner? Tell him to suit up. I'm bringing the party to you, Tony says. And Nat hilariously says, I don't see how that's a party, as Tony brings the Leviathan. Cap says, Dr. Banner, now might be a really good time to get angry. Bruce responds, that's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry. And he turns into the Hulk as he punches the Leviathan. It's such an incredible scene. I love it so much. And as Hulk punches it, Tony sends a missile at it, blowing it up. And then Hulk screams as we get our first ever assemble moment. The camera pans around them in a circle. It's so beautiful. And then Loki sends the rest of the Chitauri through the portal. Cap gives everyone orders. Tony calls Clint Legolas as he gives him a lift, and Cap turns to Hulk saying, and Hulk, smash! This gives Hulk a massive smile. And this moment of Cap and Hulk is my favorite moment in all of Marvel movies. Not just MCU, all of Marvel movies. It just feels so good to see Hulk smile because someone needs him to do the thing that he loves. Hulk starts jumping from building to building, smashing Chitauri. It's so fun to see. And then a Chitauri ship blows up in his face. We then see Thor summoning lightning at the top of a tower, and he points it at the portal and kills a bunch of Chitauri. We see a Fury get called to face the council. And Clint has a conversation with Tony as he shoots things without even looking at him. We see an office where people are looking out at the Leviathan, and as it gets closer to the window, everyone turns around to run. But they can't run away because there's a Hulk rampaging towards the window. Hulk grabs the Leviathan's mouth and starts punching. And then on the ground, we see Nat use one of their own weapons against them, and Cap shows up. Nat tells him, we gotta close the portal. Cap tells her, you'll need a ride. And she says, I got one. But I could use a boost though. And Cap throws her up to the Chitauri vehicle with his shield. And then Nat starts ratatouilleing the Chitauri on the vehicle so that she can and drive it around. Nat comes down to the bridge, Iron Man and comes down to the bridge for a second and reflects his beam on Cap's shield. It's really cool. We see a Thor and Hulk fight together on the Leviathan. And it's so cool. See this being the first time seeing Thor and Hulk fight together. They have become a really great a team up throughout the years. There's the MCU, so it's nice seeing seeing what started that. The Leviathan crashes, and then Hulk punches Thor. And this was actually a runner-up for my favorite Marvel scene. And we have and later in the film, there's another one that's there's also another one of my runner-ups. It also involves Hulk, unsurprisingly. We see Selvig wake up, starting to realize what he's done. The military finally arrive, and we see this cool mirror shot of Cap. And then he goes to a bank filled with civilians to save them. And one of the Chitauri pulls off Cap's mask and then throws another throws a grenade at him, sending him out the window. The next scene shows Fury talking to the council who wants to nuke Manhattan. but Fury refuses to do this. And then we see Nat ask Clint for help as Loki's behind her. Loki shoots him. He catches the arrow and smiles, not realizing it's an exploding arrow. Loki gets knocked back onto Stark Tower, and Nat jumps down to the cube machine, and Loki gets greeted by Hulk, who jumps up to the tower. Loki tells him, "Enough! You all are beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by." He gets cut off by Hulk, who grabs him and starts repeatedly smashing him left and right. And then Hulk walks away saying, "Beauty God." And this is another runner-up, actually, from this is the other runner-up that I mentioned earlier for what my favorite scene is in the entire MCU and Marvel in general, because Hulk is just so good in this film. Nat has a conversation with Selvig about Loki's scepter being needed to destroy the machine. We see Tony ask Jarvis, "Have you ever heard the story of Jonah?" And Jarvis says, "I wouldn't consider him a role model," as Tony flies into the Leviathan's mouth, shooting missiles inside of it. This reminds me now of Guardians Volume 2 when Drax decides he needs to go inside of the beast at the beginning of the film because its scales or its skin is too hard to pierce from the outside. And then as it explodes, Tony comes crashing out of it to the ground, and Chitauri corner him. We see Clint jump down from the building, which is even more cool now, as we know that young Kate Bishop saw this. And I'm not quite sure as I was watching the film if I actually saw the building that she was in or not, but I was the whole time when I was only had scenes aids while Clint was on that building, I was looking around the background out in front of him to see do we see that building, the building where her house was, but I didn't notice whether or not we actually do see it or not. There were a couple buildings that had wreckage in front of them that could be it, but there was nothing that I was definitively that's it, that must be it. But it really is really cool to I'll see the scene, and it's even cooler now because knowing the importance of it for Kate Bishop's coming up of it. This is what made her decide she wanted to become an archer. We then see a Hulk get surrounded by Chitauri as well, as they all shoot at him, and then we see the council try to override Eye Fury by sending a jet with the nuke themselves. Fury comes out with an RPG and shoots one on Jet, but there's another. He can't stop it, so he calms Tony, asking him to deal with it. Tony uses the last of his power to fly up to the missile nuke, and we see Thor and Cap fight together. Cap gets hit after riding, and then after ridding the area of Chitauri, Thor offers Cap a hand up, and then Nat and Selvig with the scepter start trying to close the portal. And Nat tells the others that she can close it. Cap says, "Do it." And then Tony says, "No, wait. I got a nuke coming in." And Tony plans to take it through the portal. Cap tells him, "Stark, you know that's one-way trip." Jarvis asks, "Shall I try to call Miss Potts?" And Tony says, "Might as well." Sadly, Pepper doesn't see it as she's focused on watching everything unfolding on TV. So it's definitely a good thing that Tony didn't end up dying in this film, because if he had, she wouldn't have been there, and she would have been an emotional wreck. because she didn't answer that phone. Then everyone on board the helicarrier is also watching, and all the other Avengers as well. And after Tony goes through, the suit shuts off, and Tony goes unconscious. He falls back to Earth, and the Chitauri ship explodes, causing the Chitauri on Earth to power off. Cap tells Nat to close it, and Tony just barely gets through the portal as he falls. Hawk grabs him and brings him to the ground. Hawk screams in his face, which wakes him up. I love this scene so much, and it makes me wonder whether Hawk just woke him up by just being extremely loud, so it woke him up, or was Tony's heart stopped? I asked that because I feel like Hawk's scream might have actually been loud enough that the vibration could have been like a defibrillator shocking the heart. Tony he says, as what the hell just happened? Please tell me no one kissed me. Cap says, we won. Tony suggests that they go to a shawarma place, which we end up seeing them at in the post-credit scene. We see a Loki climb the stairs just for the Avengers to appear above him. He says, I'll take that drink now. We see a bunch of news reports, including one where Stan Lee says, superheroes in New York? Give me a break. And then Fury talks to the council as we see the Avengers ship Loki and the Tesseract with Thor to Asgard, and then the rest of the Avengers part ways. Tony and Bruce leave together, and he'll ask Fury, what's going to happen if we get into a situation like this again? And Fury says, they'll come back. He'll ask why. Fury says, because we'll need them to. Tony and Pepper set plans to make Stark Tower into Avengers Tower. And then as the credits roll, we get two scenes. The first showing Thanos for the first time. And it's such an epic scene. And then the second one is just a fun thing, as I mentioned before, is of just the Avengers getting shawarma. This film is absolutely amazing. I love every moment of it, and I truly believe this film is the best Hulk has ever been on film. It's exactly the Hulk I want. It is one of my favorite Marvel films still to this day. It's just so good, and it's weird to think it's been out now for 10 years. And due to how long this review is already and how wordy this review is already, I'm electing not to talk about trivia from IMDb on from this film. But so the answers to the trivia questions from earlier were Calcutta, and as Sean mentioned, and Lou Ferrigno. And I want to before I end this off, I want to say again, I'm sorry that Sean wasn't able to be here for the end of this, but I'm thankful for him trying to come on the show. Oh, and we'll be glad to have him back again at another time if you would like to come. So, thank you for listening. If you like this Gamma analysis, please give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film, so please let me know. And if you'd like to listen to more from me, please subscribe. Many more Gamma analyses from me coming, so keep on the lookout. This again is your host, Smash Trivia John, signing off.